Hello, everyone. How are you? I am Dwayne Shigg, and this is Talk About It. We're going to have a very good conversation tonight about a subject that many people may need, but a lot of people may not like to talk about. But we're going to talk about it on tonight. Tonight, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever part of the country you may be in. But we're going to talk about mental health. Mental health. The stigma and all of that. We've got some guests that are with us, going to help us talk about that. But I want to talk about that. I'll introduce our guests or have them introduce themselves. One of our guests will be here later, Mr. Raymond Forte. He's an author of a book where he talks about his own personal mental health issues. And so we want to talk about that. But also we have with us Miss Katrina Harrell. She's an LPC. She has a clinic where she helps people with mental health issues, counseling, and things of that nature. And we have Mr. Terrence L. Shigg, who is an MFT, and he happens to be my brother. See, I didn't say little brother, man. See there? In all seriousness, Miss Katrina, hello, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here, and introduce yourself to the people.
Hello, I am Katrina S. Harrell. You gave a perfect introduction. I've been practicing for going on 6-7 years. Again, I think I really like dealing with youth. I focus a lot on youth, birth to young adult.
Okay. So, yeah. You don't like dealing with old people?
No, to be honest with you, that's one of the areas that I don't want to dive in. I don't want to be a counselor in geriatrics. No.
Okay. LPC, what is that?
So LPC for the state of Arizona stands for Licensed Professional Counselor.
Okay.
You in the state of Arizona, you have to be, in order to practice independently. There's 2 levels as a licensed counselor. There's the associate level, and then there's the professional counselor. Okay. So I am now independent.
Okay, good. And we'll talk about your practice a little bit later. Terrence L. Shigg, introduce yourself. Tell the people who you are and what you do.
Hello. Well, Terrence L. Shigg, as you said, I am a marriage and family therapist. I've been practicing for about 12 years now. The majority of my practice now goes from children and also veterans. So I kind of always specialized in first responders, families. That's always been my passion, just from my background. So that's what I deal with now. And that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, good. I want to ask each of you an introductory question. This is a very important subject, prominent subject. A lot of times people don't like to talk about mental health. It's in the news right now because of, Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka, the tennis player, as well as others. And this has a certain stigma to it. Why do you think, I'm going to start with Ms. Harrell, if you agree that there is a certain stigma to it, why do you think that is, and how does that does it hurt? And if so, how? I know that's a lot of questions. And Mr. Shigg, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Okay.
Well, I think because when you think of mental health, mental illness, which are 2 different things, by the way, but it's, I think we have a tendency to, you always heard, oh, that person is crazy, right? That's the term that was used for a long time. And crazy didn't mean it wasn't a good thing. Right. And so we have a tendency to focus in on that versus the health part, or to even, I think there's not a clear understanding of what mental health is in our community for the most part, but I just think across the board, and especially in the church.
Right. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later also, because I want to specifically deal with that. Terry, same thing, the stigma, what it is, why it is, from your experience.
I think it's always been something that's been undervalued. And I think it's always had that stigma going back historically from, as Dr. Harrell said, or excuse me, as Miss Farrell said,
You're prophesying. You're being prophetic. You're being prophetic.
But historically, it's been everything from the insane asylum and from motion pictures to everything that you've heard about mental health has been that stigma of it's crazy people. It's the people that you see talking to themselves that can't take care of themselves. That's what mental health is. And even working in the law enforcement profession and doing a lot of suicide prevention type of things, it's a very difficult topic to bring up in certain communities because of that stigma and because of the connection to weakness that it has.
Oh,
People feel as though if you have a mental health, then you're weak, because if you can't take care of your mind, so to speak, you're, for some reason that means that you're weak or you're incapable of something. And that's no more true than the person that sprains their ankle. That person is no less weak than the person with mental health. Something happened to cause that, and there's ways to deal with it.
Wow. This is starting off to be a good conversation. We're going to talk about, my goal is to talk about some evaluation information and then give some rectification. But Ms. Harrell, you said something that caught me. You said mental illness and mental health are not the same thing. Can you unpack that for us?
So I'm going to, I like giving definitions so that you don't think that I'm the expert. So I'm going to go with the CDC, right? We depend on the CDC. The CDC's definition for mental illness refers to, and I said this and I like to repeat it a couple of times so that we have a clear understanding. Mental illness refers to the conditions that affect a person's thinking, feeling, mood, or behavior, right?
One more time, please. One more time.
Mental illness refers to conditions that affect a person's thinking, feeling, mood, or behavior. Right there. That's mental illness.
Okay.
Mental health reflects our emotional, psychological, and social well-being, affecting how we think, feel, and act.
Oh. So mental illness is a negative thing. Mental health is what we do. Now I'm asking, this is a question, not a criticism. So help me. Mental illness is a negative thing, and then mental health is how we deal with our mental illness. Would that be accurate or no?
Well, so mental illness, it refers to conditions.
Okay.
Conditions that affect a person's thinking, feeling, mood, or behavior. And so when we think about conditions, those conditions can include anxiety, they can include depression, and then the ones that get the negative stigma, that ones that we focus on, which makes it hard for us to break the stigma, are the ones like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And mental health. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, and then mental health is our emotional, psychological, and social well-being, right? So it's affecting how we think, feel, and act.
Oh, you just answered my first question, because I was going to say professionally, what does mental health mean? Because and welcome to our brother Raymond Forte. We're going to get to talk to him. He's an author, wrote a book, but I want to have him do the introduction. Because I think you said, you unpacked it, and Terrence, I've been calling him Terry for his whole life. So if I slip into Terrence and not be professional, I don't mean no harm. He said a lot of times people don't understand, because I never realized that there was a difference. And so oftentimes people don't understand what it is. And so we fall into the stigmas of, people being 5150, people being, I know that term because my wife is a nurse instructor. See, it makes me sound like I know what I'm doing, but I just copied it from my wife. And so that and the whole stigma because of ignorance. Would that be a good assessment in your estimation, Miss Katrina?
Yes.
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 Okay.
The not knowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even not doing the research to gain a clear understanding.
Oh, I mean, I got to do some work. I can't just watch CNN or turn on Facebook and get the information. I got to do something.
Yes, you need to
If you
do
want
something.
to know. Okay. I'm saying because of ignorance, what would you say? Would you agree with Miss Katrina Terry?
Yeah, and it's a lot of the things that people fill in the gaps of what they don't know. So it's not knowing and then going by what you heard or what you thought, rather than actually doing the research, looking up, going to the places like NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Health, that has all this information together, or talking to a professional, a counselor, or a therapist, psychologist, somebody that actually is in that field. And one of the things I always tell people is, even if you don't need a counselor, go find one. So when you do need one, you don't have to go interviewing people under stress. So you have it in your back pocket when everything's going right, and you can go and talk to people and say, hey, I'm just making sure I'm okay checking in, but I wanted to make sure that I found somebody that was a fit for me. And that's one of the things I think people don't know about the profession, is every therapist isn't a match for every client. So, and every good one of us would say, if you're not fit, let me find somebody else that is for you, because our ultimate goal is to help you, not to pad my book or to make sure that I'm doing okay. Because as you know, I'm busy. I don't have the time, so I don't need the extra. So, but really, that is what the profession is there for. It is a helping profession. And a lot of people, they don't know enough about it or do the research to go and actually talk to someone in the profession to see, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Is this something that you can help me with? Okay. Well, no, but I know someone that may be able to help you. And you find someone that fits with you, that thinks, that sees the world in a way that is conducive to your growth, would be the way that I put it.
Very good. Very good. Our guest, Mr. Raymond Forte. How are you, sir? Raymond.
I'm doing well. Forgive me for my late. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Forgive me. Forgive me for.
Well, you're
forgive
here.
me for my tardiness. How's everybody?
Okay. Going good. Mr. Raymond Forte, Katrina Harrell, LPC, a counselor, and my brother Terrence Shigg is an MFT. You wrote a book dealing with your own issues of mental health.
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Harrell, after he talks about it, I need you to correct me if I'm using the right term as it relates to him, mental health or mental illness. But tell us the name of your book and give us a brief understanding of what the book is about.
All right. So the name of my book is called Maximizing Mentally. And in my book, I talk about my own challenges and experiences that I face with mental health, that's with mental illness, that stemmed from a lot of traumas that I faced in childhood. And I took those traumas, those undealt traumas, into my adulthood, and made horrible decisions, wasn't the best husband, and just was not an asset the way I knew I could have been. So in my book, I just talk about my journey, talk about my mental breakdown that I had, and I talk about how I had to overcome those experiences and start over and rebuild. And I use a lot of basketball examples in the book, and I speak to men, but it's informative for women as well. I don't give any expertise. I just talk about how, for the man, our mental health is so key, because it determines how everything goes around us. So, so that's what I talk about in my book, and I encourage men to get the help and do the work. Excuse me, so that they can make their communities better, their households better, make their families better. But it all starts in our mind. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So yeah.
Let me ask you a question. You talked about mental breakdown. Were there some signs, or when did you know that you had mental issues, mental health issues, mental illness issues? Was it at the breakdown, or was it something you knew prior to that? Or how did you come to that understanding that, okay, I've got some mental issues?
Well, I knew before the breakdown, I knew that I needed some help, but I was too proud and too busy to get help. I was like, you know what, I'll get it. I'll figure it out. But it took me losing both of my jobs after moving back to Phoenix from Atlanta. It took those job losses to really break me and to say, you know what, okay, I need to get the help I really need, because I can't work my way out of this per se for money. I have to get some true help so I can do the work and be better
I
for the
like
people
what you
around me.
said. I like what you said. You can't work your way out of this, because sometimes we try our own solutions of getting out of it, and it doesn't work. Miss Katrina, I want to ask you a question. You're helping people. You started, and we're going to talk about your clinic. Why do you do this?
Well, um, I feel like I've always walked in my calling,
Okay.
right? I'm called to it, and I've also people were always coming to me for advice, and I was always trying to help. And then I had some childhood traumas of my own that I had overcome and actually dealt with, because that's important. He said a mouthful when he said I had some things that I had dealt with.
Right.
And so what I realized as people were coming to me, I was like, I'm gonna mess somebody up. I need to learn how to do this right. And I didn't, because my heart was truly in it. I wanted to make sure that I was guiding people in the right direction. And one of the things that I learned, I was always giving advice. And one of the things that I learned is counseling is not advice giving, right? You can't help people unless you help them to arrive to some decisions and some conclusions on their own, which was, again, a big thing that Raymond identified in what he stated.
Okay. Good. Want you to take a couple of seconds, Terry, and answer that question. Why do you do this? And then I'm going to give you another question behind that. Are there any common causes for mental illness? But first, why do you do this? Obviously, I know the answer, but I want you to tell the people why you do this.
Oh, well, I'd say it's a very similar answer. I believe this is what I was built to do this.
Right.
And I believe I was called to do it. And one of the things that really stood out to me when I was able, because when I first got out of college, thinking about doing something like this, because bachelor's degree in psychology will not get you too many doors open. And I didn't have the funds to go and get the master's degree at the time. So I went ahead and started a career and went back to school many years later. So to me, the reason why I do it is one of the main things I always wanted to do is I wanted there to be someone that looked like me to be a counselor. Because there's very few males, there's less males, and there's fewer African-American males that are counselors. So that was a very important part of it to me, is to make sure that for that population, when they need to go to a counselor, if they wanted someone that looked like them, that they had an option. So that's
kind of connecting with what Raymond was talking about for the reason for his book.
Right.
Okay.
So that was a very big part that played into me getting into it specifically to make sure that I went through, because there's a lot of people that go through and get the degree without the credentials. So it was very important for me to carry through and make sure I got the credentials so that I could have the opportunity to help those people that wouldn't go otherwise, because there are a segment of the population that will not go if the person doesn't look like them.
Right.
And that's one of the issues. And we can go into a whole nother area with that, as far as not having people that look like us in key positions, from teaching professions to CEOs to presidents of corporations. But this is one that I could have an impact on, so I wanted to make sure of that.
Okay, and the other question, and I'm just going to call you Dr. Harrell because my brother prophesied, so we're going to call you that. Terry answered this, and then Dr. Harrell. Are there any common causes for, mental issues, mental illnesses? Is there any, common causes for it? I know that may sound like a lame question, but being a layman, I don't know how to phrase it right. But are there any common causes for it?
Now, me or
You first.
The doctor. Me first.
Yes.
So to me, I would say one of the common factors would be trauma, and unresolved trauma or undealt with trauma is one of the leading causes. And I would say that a lot of and I can speak for the clients that I've dealt with, there's been some form of trauma in their history that either they've dealt with in an unhealthy manner or they haven't dealt with at all. And when I say with an unhealthy manner, meaning they've covered it up with drugs, alcohol, sex, avoidance, anger, all those things to avoid dealing with that trauma. And it's just a defense mechanism. It's not like they turned on the light and said, okay, I'm going to not deal with that, so I'm going to go do this. It's a defense mechanism. So it's something that's done at most of the time at a subconscious level so that you don't have to deal with something else.
Oh, okay. Okay. Same question. Ms. Dr. Harrell.
Your brother stated it. It's unhealed trauma. One of my first supervisors was a DO. He was a doctor, a psychiatrist. And I remember him stating that unhealed trauma can often mimic things like ADHD, bipolar, schizophrenic, borderline. It looks the same. And so when you don't take care of your trauma, you learn to respond and react a certain way. And then in addition to that, I watched a TED Talk. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris. And in one of her TED Talks, she described trauma as fighting, having to fight with a bear, right? She described our natural, the way that we're designed, our fight, flight, and freeze mechanisms are designed so that we can protect ourselves in the event of our encounters with a bear.
Okay.
And the question that she asked in that TED Talk, so what happens when the bear comes home every night?
Ooh, yeah. Very good. Right. Very good. Very good. But Raymond, how did you, I want to ask you about your response, the responses from people, family and friends to your needing help. But as the other two talked about trauma that you hadn't dealt with, was that pretty much your case in terms of what led to your mental issues of not dealing with the trauma? And if not dealing with it, was it because you didn't know how or you didn't know you were supposed to?
I did. Well, it was a combination of those things. I didn't know it was mental issues, and I didn't know that it was okay for me to say, okay, I need help.
Because that's good.
A lot of the people around me expected me to be strong, expected me to be to bounce back, or not even bounce back, expected me to be strong, expected me to carry out my responsibilities as a man, expected me to be at my best. But even still, I knew deep down that something wasn't right, and I tried to cry for help, but my cry for help came in destructive ways, as Brother Terrence mentioned it. Like sex was my thing, and so I became very promiscuous and used that as a cover up to not deal with a lot of the things that I had dealt with as a child and even in my early adulthood. So I didn't know I needed help. I thought I was okay, but deep down I knew I needed something, and the breakdown but it really exposed how bad I was mentally. So yeah.
What was a response from family and friends when you were exposed? I don't mean that in a negative term. It's
right.
Just when you were exposed that you needed the help, you weren't as much of the man. You talked about your ego. When people, what was the response from family and friends?
So the day I had my breakdown, there was a friend who my circle immediately responded with love and help.
because because I was at my lowest, like mentally that day. I was really at my lowest. So my friends here in Phoenix responded with love. They responded immediately, and they loved me back to life. A lot of my
Ooh,
a
like
lot of my family didn't really understand what I was going through. My mother was nervous. My mother was scared. She was all the way in Atlanta when all of this was happening, so she was nervous. But I don't think a lot of my family really understood what I went through that day, as far as my breakdown. I don't think they really understood or grasped what it was I went through until I wrote the book.
Oh, so the book was more, it was more revealing for them. So they knew what you were going through, but they didn't understand all the dynamics of it.
Correct.
And so why did you write the book?
I wrote the book. Well, I wrote the book because I how can I answer this? So my publisher, I had no plans on being an author. So let me just put that out there.
Right.
But my publisher saw a post that on my Facebook page in regards to boys and their sexual abuse. I lost my virginity to a woman who was 9 years my elder when I was 16. And I revealed that on Facebook. I talked about it on Facebook. And so my publisher saw that, and he reached out to me and he said, this is a book idea. And this is something that you really need to, talk about and get other young men exposed to it. And
Right.
so after prayer and him and I discussing, he invited me into his book writing boot camp. His wife was the coach. And I wrote the book to tell men it's okay not to be okay, because I've seen the effects of not doing the work and not doing the work to get your mental health in straight. I've seen it with my father. I've seen it with men close to me in positions of power. And so I wrote the book to let men know to go get help, because it really truly does affect positively or negatively the people around you. It's all on how you respond to it, though.
Very good. Very good. I'm going to ask you, Ms. Harrell, Raymond, and I think Terry earlier talked about stigmas. Well, I want to talk about stigmas, and I want to talk about cries for help. So what are some of the stigmas towards mental issues that that cause people to do like Raymond said, not to look for help, not to go after help? Some of the reasons people don't do that.
Well, I think your brother said it earlier when he mentioned like insane asylums, right? We have scary movies and movies that focus in on that, and then and that's how we see it, right? We only view it from that perspective versus viewing it from a perspective of how we think and act and respond, or conditions that actually affect our thinking and our responses. I think we don't know the difference between having to adapt because of our trauma, or how we adapt becoming maladaptive, right? So it becomes the norm for us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's good. It becomes the norm. Okay. We have one of our viewers responded. She said, "Thank you, everyone. This is helping me with my son." So she just wanted to say thank you to everyone, because the things that you're talking about are helping her with her son. So
and it's important. I'm so glad she said that, because with boys it starts early. It really starts early, like the mental development. We should begin with our boys early, mental development, just their development mentally and their strength mentally, so that a breakdown won't happen. The breakdown that I experienced won't happen to them.
Very good.
And
very good.
Yeah, so I'm glad that it's helping, because that's another reason why I wrote the book for. And I think Dr. Harrell, Miss Katrina Harrell has the book.
See that?
And
we're going to get it. It's out there in the atmosphere. Yeah. I'm sorry, Raymond. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. And I use a lot of basketball examples, to connect not with just the men, but with the boys as well. And
Right.
so when we get our boys early, and when we let them know what their purpose is and what their identity is early, then we'll be able to see more success stories and more boys with direction and focus and discipline, because we were able to give them their identity and give them what they need early, so that they can be the boys to men for their community.
Okay, I want to ask you, Terry, to answer this question. Deal with this. A viewer. He's 23 and sitting with me, and currently experience his own mental breakdown, and he wants the help. Talk to him and tell him what to do. How would you help him? I know it's difficult, but
yeah. I can answer it. It would be a generic answer, but from my answer, and I would say from my heart, would be that you've already started doing what you need to do by writing that one sentence or making that one statement. That's usually the hardest part. Most people don't even get there. So pat yourself on the back. And recognize that you have a circle of people already there that are helping you, because you have somebody sitting next to you.
Right.
The next thing I would say is do the things that help you take care of yourself. And that could be anything from writing, reading, exercising, praying, meditating, talking. And I would suggest that you find somebody that you trust, a counselor, a professional that you can go sit down and talk to. And as I said before, it doesn't have to be the first person you sit down and talk to. They may not be a fit for you. And if they're not, they're okay. That's okay. Every therapist, doctor worth their salt is okay with you saying, I got you, I hear you, but I'm just not feeling our connection. That's fine. Find one that you're comfortable with, not one that's comfortable with you.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Now, if I put that on a t-shirt, do I have to pay you?
Oh, yeah. We'll work on the contract later.
Okay. I want to ask you, I got to go to break. I want to ask you, Dr. Harrell, if you would add anything to what he said to this young man. Or to this young man or anyone else that's watching, but they, for whatever reason, don't want to put it in the comment.
Your brother said it. The awareness, the fact that you are aware that there's something going on, that's the first step, right? Awareness. Because we will not change anything if we don't recognize that there's an issue.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And sometimes we can get caught up in our thinking, and I'll repeat, because it becomes the norm, and we think that this is just how we're supposed to, because we've always lived in survival mode. This is how we've survived. I've got this far on thinking this way, so I've survived. So a lot of times we live in survival mode, and being aware that that's the mode that you're in, and it's hard. I'd say find someone in your area, seek out a therapist. I'm glad I like your brother's reason for going into this. One of my colleagues, she calls them unicorns.
right. Yeah. I'm gonna get personal. We've been unicornish for most of our lives, our family. So that's good. I'm gonna take a break right quick, and then I want to come back and move into more solution mode, if that makes sense. You're watching, if you just joined us, you're watching Talk About It. I'm Dwayne Shigg, and we're talking about mental health. We're talking about mental illness. We're talking about all of that and getting some solutions. Our show is brought to you in part by my book, Encouragement for Tough Times. I call it Encouragement, M-I-N-T-S, because I tell people sometimes you need a breath mint, sometimes you need an encouragement. One's for your mouth and one is for your mind. And so the book is filled with motivating messages to help you. One is called How to Deal with Fear and Doubt, and one is called Motivation from Mess Ups, and the other one is called, another one's called I Can't Sing. And that one helps people to focus on something different, because when we get in trouble, we start thinking about what we cannot do. And so I wrote that to say, well, I can't sing, but I can do some other things. So to get people to focus on what they can do, and each chapter begins with an original encouragement quote like the one on page 31. It says, you can still have promotion in spite of life's commotion. And so you can get your copy at Amazon.com. Encouragements for tough times. Go to Amazon.com. If you get confused, you won't get confused, because when you get to the browser of Amazon.com, just put in the browser my last name, Shigg. You won't get confused, because there's only 3 people on there, 3 authors on there with that last name. Me, my brother Terry, and my cousin Simeon. So you won't get confused. You can even buy one of their books. I'll just have them give me a commission. That's all. And so do that. Encouragements for a tough time. Get your copy at Amazon.com. One of our other viewers, he says, I mentor men out of prison. Even I have mentors. So I guess he's talking about that. He also said, yes, find an accountability partner or mentor, someone you can truly trust. I know this young man, Chris Marino. And so he's saying, do that. Find an ability counselor, someone that you can really trust. And so thank you for being here. And if you just tuned in, this is Talk About It, and we are dealing with mental health. I want to ask each of you to give me a little bit on this. And you alluded to it earlier. I'm going to start with Raymond, and then Dr. Harrell, and then Terry. In our community, people that look like us, and especially people who look like us who are tongue talking, believing in Jesus, shouting, shabaking, Bible quoting, all of that good stuff. And I'm not making fun, but I'm saying we have all of that. But for whatever reason, we have a blockage when it comes to counseling. We'll pray about it, but for whatever reason, we won't go talk to somebody about it. Starting with you, Raymond, and then Dr. Harrell, and then Terry, give me just a little bit of why you think that is, maybe from your own experience.
Shame.
Anyone, why do you think that is? Ooh, unpack that a little bit.
With shame, it's like you kind of, I think sometimes a lot of people, especially in Christendom, don't want to go see a counselor because they will feel like they'll be shamed for going to a counselor, especially within the Black context. You know, mental illness was never really a thing for our community, or I guess I should say mental health, or the solutions to mental health wasn't really a thing for us. So right. I think a lot of times we don't go see counselors because we don't want to be shamed for going to it, and we don't want to be labeled as crazy for going to a counselor. So we want to appear to have the spirit. We strengthen the spiritual, but never really get to the practical, and that's an imbalance. And so when you have an imbalance of the two, then it almost goes into delusion, almost goes into a mindset of delusion when you focus heavy on the spiritual, but not really get into the internal. So I think a lot of times we don't go out of fear of being shamed of going, but I think you're courageous for admitting that you need to go. I believe as a Christian.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. Dr. Harrell, same question. What would you add?
I think sometimes growing up in the church, we feel like if we go seek mental health counseling, but I think, and we also do it with other parts of our health, we're not holy enough. Right. Yeah. Right. If I'm seeking help elsewhere, that means I haven't prayed enough. I don't trust God enough. And the questions I would ask is, are we trusting God with everything, with our mind to lead us and guide us in the right direction? Right. And earlier we were talking about the lack of understanding. The word says, in all that gain an understanding.
Right. Exactly. I love it. Terry, same question.
I like it. I have a saying that says, this ain't normal and you ain't crazy. And it goes to that whole survival mode mentality. We get so used to, in our communities, the majority of our young people have gone through some form of trauma.
Really?
Be it, the helicopters at night, be it the gunshots in the background, be it watching something violent happen right in front of you on the bus or on the street. These things happen, and we just brush it off. Okay, that's what happens, but that's not normal. You've just gotten used to it, but that doesn't mean it's normal. It doesn't mean that it doesn't impact you or affect you in some way. And I think that's where that stigma comes from. And then there's also this fact that everyone is different. Our brains, our biology, our chemistry is all different. So me and you could see the same thing, and it could affect me totally different than it affects you. And so that stigma becomes, okay, you're weak because you got depressed, or you had to go to a doctor when it didn't bother me at all.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
We assume the same thing that is going to have the same effect, and it really doesn't. So it really goes back to that, what we get used to, and the idea of, well, it didn't bother him, and so it shouldn't bother you, or we just need to go to church more, or we just need to, okay, well, yeah, you can do that too, but that doesn't mean I don't take the medicine. That means I go to church and I take the medicine. God didn't tell you don't let anybody else that I send you help you, because everywhere in the Bible, he sent people to help. He sent people to help.
Right. And one of our viewers, Pastor Teddy Burton, Raymond and Miss Katrina, you know him. He said, if Jesus, talking about why sometimes people don't, people get the stigma of, Christian people not wanting to go. Their thinking is, if Jesus can't fix it, no one else can. And so he says, sometimes you need a therapist and Jesus. And so ask Jesus to send you to a therapist. And so that's very true. And we've got to, and Dr. Harrell, you said it, we've got to learn, and Raymond did too. I think as a minister myself, and former pastor, I think sometimes we've got to be more practical in ministry. Apply the script, get the scripture, the principle, but apply them in a practicality of how everyday people can deal with them. And that's not anti-therapist or any of that. I want to ask a question. Dr. Harrell and Tara, you let me know that you were athletes. Raymond, were you an athlete like in high school or college or anything?
No, I wasn't an athlete.
Okay.
I was a performer.
I want to ask them a question. One of our viewers also said the youth of the inner city has a subconscious PTSD from living in lower economic and lower developed educational system and the housing system. So all of those things that we consider normal, he's saying have an effect on us. But I want to ask the two of you, looking at the Olympics and the Simone Biles and the Naomi Osaka pulling out, talk about the balance of dealing with both of these, the idea, the athletic mentality that, okay, I'm going to play through this pain. Okay, I'm going to go back out on that field. I'm going to go back out on that court, playing through the pain. We have Simone Biles versus Kerry Scruggs. One went on with a broken ankle, and one decided not to. And one may be looked upon as, depending on who you talk to, looked upon as, see there, she's a real athlete. She stuck it out. And the other one, see, she's a quitter. So as an athlete yourself, Dr. Harrell, talk to us about how you have dealt with it. Talk about that, if you can talk about it from the athlete and the therapist, that playing through the pain thing as it relates to mental health.
Well, when it comes to playing through the pain, I think if we're going to focus back in on mental health, we'll talk about what we were saying earlier, how trauma is unresolved. We end up getting mental illness because of our unresolved trauma. The same thing as it relates to sports. We end up hurting ourselves further and further pain, damage, not even able to go on and play years down the road because of those injuries that we did not allow to properly heal.
Ooh, okay.
Right, during the process. And when you think about Simone, I think it was Simone Biles, gymnastics, right?
Correct.
So when it comes to that, I heard a term that they use called the twisties, right? If you feel something, then that can be basically a self-fulfilling prophetic. So if you are nervous or tense about a situation, you don't want to move forward. My cousin actually made a post of a Russian athlete who was forced to go through a broken leg and injury, who ended up hurting herself, later became a quadriplegic and died young.
Wow.
So it is important for us to be able to be aware of what's going on.
Oh, very good. Very good. Terry, same thing. From your experience as an athlete, a therapist, talk about that for a second.
Okay. Well, first, I wanted to applaud both of those athletes, Simone Biles and the other one, for actually putting those things out there. And I think one of the things when we talk about stigma and what caused that stigma is what Simone Biles just went through. That's why people don't say anything, because he just actually is an example of exactly why people don't say anything.
Right.
Because the minute they do, you have the armchair quarterbacks that are going to sit back and judge her based on people that don't even know her, never been around her, don't know how tough she is. And that girl is probably one of the toughest gymnasts I've seen in my lifetime. And our brother was a gymnast, so we've always followed that type of thing.
Right.
So that is a perfect example of why people don't come forward with it.
Wow.
And she didn't have to tell anybody that. She could have just said no, and it's none of your business. So for her to do that, I applaud that. Now, as an athlete, I go back to my thing that everybody's different. And every athlete knows when it's okay to push through it and when it's time to just, I can't do it.
Right. Okay.
And there are some that still do it anyway, but I can't judge another athlete based on what they believe they can and cannot or should not do. In my case, I was blessed. I didn't have a lot of injuries. I had a lot of good people around me that protected me, especially playing football. So my whole mentality was that, and I never had to get into a situation where I absolutely had to make that choice. But my mentality was a very team-oriented mentality, meaning my goal was to make everybody else on the team better, and to lead them in a way that would not only help our team to win, but help us as a unit become stronger.
Okay.
So with that in mind, being in those type of situations, if it wasn't something that was, if I wasn't in a healthy space, either mentally or physically, no, I wouldn't play. But that would be from a leadership position also, to tell my players, the people with me, that it's okay to not be okay.
And you also had a mama that if she thought something was wrong, she'd go out on the field and pull you off.
That is true.
and wouldn't care what anybody else said. Yes, Raymond, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I wanted to add to that. I mean, I'm not an athlete, but in my book, I talk about injury, and I talk that's one of my and I talk about mental injury amongst men and how that takes longer to recover than it does from a physical injury as well, because mental injuries, they stick with us, they stick in our mental, but they stay with us until we deal with it. But in regards to sports, I talk about in the book Kevin Durant, excuse me, when he was playing with the Golden State Warriors, he had his he had his injury on his right calf in 2019 against the Houston Rockets. He injured it, and the doctor said, hey, you're going to have to be out for the rest of the playoffs pretty much. But the Warriors really wanted to win. And so Kevin Durant came back to the NBA Finals. I want to say it was game 1 or 2, I believe, or game 1 or 2. And he's playing in the second half, and in the second quarter, he re-injures that same calf that the doctor told him he needed to be out for. And because he injured that, he wasn't able to play the entire 2020 season. So in regards to injury, we have to be very aware, and not, especially in regards to the athletes, you have to be aware, but also in the mental, with your mental, you have to be aware too as well. Because if your mental's not there, if you're still injured mentally, then you're still going to be a detriment to everyone else around you, just like you are going to be a detriment physically. if Simone would have done that, she would have been a detriment to not only her team, but to herself had she went out and not listened to her inner. So
I like that. I like that. And she didn't finish the team stuff, cheered everybody on, and I heard earlier today she came back on the balance beam and won a silver medal. And then the twist explained it that it was a disconnect between your brain and your body. So like when you're coming down, you don't know where the bottom is, so you can't hit your stance. And that would have been very detrimental. And so you said it, and Terry also said it. You have to know, yourself. I want to ask a question. My goodness, this is so good, and I got 8 minutes. I want to ask a question. How do you know the difference between just normal stress? Okay, I'm finishing a book. I've got a book signing. Matter of fact, I personally have a book signing this coming weekend. So I'm not stressed about it because I don't really stress about anything. But some people could be stressed about, am I going to sell enough books? Is anybody coming? Now, I would consider that, normal stress for a little while. Okay, the movie's come out. Is anybody going to watch it? How am I going to do? When I speak, I've been speaking for 41 years. I still get nervous. But that's just normal stuff. And my question is, that's normal for me, but that doesn't mean I have mental issues. And depending on who you ask, they'll say I do have mental issues, but that's another conversation. How do you know the difference between just normal life stress and stress that's traumatic and that says you need some help? The difference between that and just normal everyday, life. You can start, Terry.
So for me, and I think it's kind of how the DSM-R, which is the manual that all the diagnoses are in, it really goes to your quality of life. Meaning if this event or the stress is impacting your quality of life, meaning it's impacting your relationships, it's impacting your diet, it's impacting your ability to enjoy things that you normally enjoy, that's when it's outside of the normal stress. Okay. That's how you can tell, okay, you know what, I haven't been outside in a week. That's not normal for me. Okay, this is taken away from my quality. I'm not hanging out with my friends that I usually hang out with. I'm not talking to my brothers that I usually call, once a week or once a month. Those are the things that are the trigger, the red lights to kind of go, okay, I need to change something. I need to do something. Or I need to talk to someone to figure out. And there's nothing wrong with having that mentor to go to say, hey, I just need to check in with somebody. This is what's going on. Does that sound okay? Not saying that it's always going to be the best advice, but sometimes being able to verbalize it just gets the mind going in a different direction than it would by just spinning it around in your head.
Dr. Harrell, same question, the difference between normal, just life stuff and, the traumatic stuff, because, don't want to send everybody to therapy because you had a bad day because your team lost, or you had a bad day because whatever. That don't mean you need to go to therapy. You just need to get some sleep. Or, same question that I asked Terry, how do you know the difference?
So because I work with young kids, I like to come up with a visual to explain it. And so I typically use my calming jar to help explain it. And I identify like this glitter at the jar is the bottom of the jar is all the stresses, everything that we deal with on our everyday basis, in our everyday lives. It doesn't go anywhere. It's settled here, right? You got a book signing, it's coming up, it's happening, right? And so the stuff is still there. It's when it's all shaken up and we allow it to control our lives, right? So you can't see through here clearly. When it was settled and it was at the bottom, I could think rationally, I could make good decisions. But when we get to this place, we don't make rational decisions. Now, here's the truth of the matter is we all may get shaken up. When we have a lot of stuff going on, we have a tendency to get shaken up. But if we have the ability to just take a step back to calm ourselves, it's all going to settle and go down to the bottom. It doesn't necessarily go anywhere. What happened, happened. But we're not allowing it to control our lives.
Oh, yes, yes. So kind of connected to what Terry said, it alters your behavior. So it not allowing it to control our lives. I like that. I like that. I like that. Raymond, so some people may not have, been here at the top, but I want to get you to, in the same vein that those two, and you answered it before, but I want to hear it again. We talked about the things, the normal stress, normal everyday stuff. When did you know that what you were dealing with was not just the normal stuff and it was problematic? When did you know? How did you know that?
Again, I think when it all came crashing down on my breakdown,
Okay.
I think it came to a culmination. Let me go back. The culmination was my breakdown, but I had known for probably like a year or two after my ex-wife had left and she had moved to Charlotte when our marriage ended, when I went back to Atlanta, and I wasn't really on my feet. I wasn't in a flow. I wasn't progressing. I didn't have any direction. I was just all over the place. So I knew in about 2017, 2018, okay, something's not right. But I didn't have the knowledge or the intelligence to say, okay, I need to find some help. And then plus it wasn't affordable at that. And that's another conversation in itself, because I think we don't make mental health accessibility affordable, especially for people who look like us. And so it wasn't affordable at the time. So I just kind of I just did what I knew how to do, was just work and just try to figure it out. So I knew around the time my marriage ended and when I moved back, okay, I need to figure out how to get help, but I didn't know how to get help, if that makes sense.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. I like that. Okay. I am so grateful. I've got 2 minutes and I'm not going to make it in 2 minutes. So I'm just going to go over by a few minutes because I know I'm not going to make it. But I'm so grateful for this conversation. And I truly believe that I know people were helped by this conversation. And I want to thank you all for being here, taking out your time and being, transparent, talking to help people. If each of you could take a couple of minutes and just give some closing remarks that would help someone in dealing with the mental illness, mental health, all of those things, helping people to help themselves. Give them something that will help them help themselves, help them in their situation. I'm going to start with Raymond, Dr. Harrell, and then Terry.
For me, your life begins the day you say, I need help. That's when life begins. After your trauma, after the things that you've been through, when you recognize that you need help, that's the day your life changes, and that's when the journey and the healing begins. And when you're able to recognize that, then you allow God and you allow life to really direct and guide you to your healing. So I think life begins when you say, I need help, and when you do that, you're on your journey to becoming your best self. So don't be afraid to admit you need help. But when you do admit it, that's when you're on your way to becoming the best version of yourself.
Oh, great. I love that. Dr. Harrell. And if this is bothering you for me to call you Dr. Harrell, I don't mean no harm. So just tell me to shut up. Just tell me not to do that. I've been married 39 years. I'm used to a woman telling me what to do. So it's no problem.
As long as I'm clarifying that I am not a doctor,
right.
What you guys decide to call me is different. I can't take that title on myself.
Yes, she is not proclaiming that. That's something I did. Well, my brother did it. I'm gonna blame it on him.
My pastor did it too.
Yes, it happens often. It does happen often. Following what he said, once you are aware, he said earlier that he didn't know how to get the help. Go, if you have insurance, whether it's Medicaid, health insurance, through your job, go on your provider, your insurance provider, and you can find a counselor. again, it's okay to try different counselors because we are not going to get offended. We're here to make sure that you are helped. So try different ones if you need to, but go on to your provider access page and find a good therapist.
Good, good. Let me do this right quick. One of our viewers said that she's grateful, and so there was talking about her son. So I just want to let you all know that you did help. And someone on the line wanted to know her son's first name, and she gave that. So getting some help, being helped on the line. And I'm just wanting to let you all know that you all have, been productive. And I want to say to Mrs. Burton, if for any reason you need to get in touch with the young lady whose son that she was talking about, I know her personally, or the mother of Kaylon, if you want to talk to the lady to ask for the name or any of these people, you can contact me and I can put you in contact with them. So, but we're grateful that you were helped. Terry, close us out, help somebody.
So for me, the one thing that I would say is there's always something that can be done. We convince ourselves when we get into these mindsets, when things environmental, however we get there, we convince ourselves that this is just how it is, rather than realizing that there's always something that can be done. I'm not saying it's always a therapist or it's always a counselor, but there's always something that can be done. It could be a book, it could be a word, it could be exercise, it could be athletics, it could be a lot of things, but we convince ourselves that we've tried everything and this is just how it is. And I don't want anyone to ever give up and think that they've tried everything. Because if we talk to ourselves long enough, we can convince ourselves of anything.
Okay.
So you go and talk to somebody, there's always something that can be done. And it's from this little box that has all this information in it to people that are willing to reach out via the internet or via groups like this. There's always something to be done.
Great. I want to give each of you an opportunity to talk about your services, your book. So let the people know what you do, where you are. They may want to come in contact with you. They may want to, talk to you. They may want to get your book. Want to, Terry, talk to us about, your services, Ms. Arell, and then Raymond, tell us about your book. So in that order.
Okay. Well, Terrence L. Shigg, you can look me up on Psychology Today. I have a listing there. I also have a website, tlshigginc.com, that you can look me up. I've written 2 books. They're both on Amazon. I guess my favorite book is the one that I wrote. It's called Brush Out, Surviving. Basically, it's my way of helping first responders survive after their career and during their careers. I was in law enforcement for 27 years. And through that, there were some ups and downs, some mental health issues, borderline mental illness issues, I'd say. But got the help that I needed, helped other people. And that's what this book is for, is to help other people before they get to go through what I went through. They can have somebody out there that'll support them. So Look me up on those, and anything you need, always feel free to send me an email. You can use the website to do that, and I'll get back to you.
And so your practice is in San Diego.
Yes.
San Diego. Okay. Ms. Arell.
So you can also find me on Psychology Today. And my website, my practice is Wholeness to Peace Care Services, LLC. My website is wholeness2peace.com or wholeness2peacecareservices.com. And if you go on and reach out to me, you can schedule a consultation, or you can schedule an appointment with my my scheduling assistant. Because again, right now I am packed, but I'm working on building and adding to my practice so that I can help more. But you also may find me listed under some of your insurance providers, because I am working on being able to help more people by accepting more insurances.
Okay, and and you primarily deal with children and young adults, teenagers, young adult, that group.
Yes, I'm trained in birth to 5 as well. So.
Okay. your assistant administrator, is her name Gwen?
Yes.
She is awesome. She is awesome. So she didn't know who I was, but she got back to me right away. So this lady runs a very professional office. So I just thought I'd say that. So for the people that want to contact you, this ain't no fly by night stuff. She know what she's doing. She's a professional. And so Raymond, tell us about the book and how people can get it.
All right, so my book, Maximizing Mentally, is available on Amazon, and it's on www.theraymondforte.com, which is listed in my display name. You can, when you purchase it on my website, you'll get an autographed copy, and then on Amazon, you get the shipping done much faster. And then also, I have a conference coming up based on my book, Maximizing Mentally, the conference, which will be held April 1st and 2nd, 2022, which is the 2-year anniversary of my book. We have guest speakers like Elder Edward Long Jr., Bishop Rudolph McKissick, Bishop Jerry Hutchins, my pastor, Pastor Brian Wright. He's going to be one of our breakout speakers. He's going to be talking about the importance of science, technology, engineering, and math in the Black community. And but again, the book Maximizing Mentally is available on my website, theraymondforte.com.
Great. Terry, Pastor Burton wants to know where in San Diego you are, but I'll text it to him or I'll give you his number when we finish because he's from San Diego. And matter of fact, again, I want to publicly thank Pastor Burton and his wife Linda because they're responsible for Miss Harrell and Raymond for being on here. And I thank you for the connection. I greatly appreciate it. To Teddy and Miss Linda. Thank you so very much. My grandfather says people don't have to be nice, and when they are, you ought to say thank you. So I'm saying thank you. Our show tonight, talk about it on mental health. I trust that something was said that helped you in some way because we go through stuff, and some things are just normal life stuff, but sometimes it gets a little bit heavy. Sometimes it gets a little bit too much. Sometimes it gets to the point where, what do I do? And you can be as spiritual as you want to be. You can have 15 titles, Reverend, Doctor, Apostle, Bishop, Potentate, Usher, whatever it is. You know Jesus. But sometimes you need to let Jesus send you to a therapist because he uses people. And so don't be afraid to call out and talk to somebody. You may find that, okay, I don't have a big issue. I just needed to vent. Or you do have a big issue, but you won't know unless you try. And some things, as each of them said, when the pressure is getting to the point, and great analogy with the water bottle, when the pressure and the stress and life stuff is getting to the point where it's all mixed up into everything and you don't know what to do, you can't see straight, it won't hurt to talk to somebody. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person. Doesn't mean you're spiritually weak. Doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean that you can't get better. All it means is you just might need to find somebody to talk to. And so take advantage of it. Please don't let the stigma of, well, I'm strong, I'm a man, I got to be tough. Don't let any of that stop you. If you think you need some help, call somebody. Call somebody. Call somebody. Even while you're waiting for the appointment, call somebody and say, man, I need you to get over here because I don't know where I am mentally. I don't know what I'm getting ready to do. Call somebody and tell them, I need you to listen to me. I need you to talk me off the ledge. I need you to, I don't mean that literally, but you need to talk to somebody. All right? And I trust that something was said that helped you in some way. I'm Dwayne Shigg, and we've been here dealing with mental health, a conversation on mental health, and we wanted to make sure you were with us as we talked about it. Stay with us. Continue to follow us. You can follow me on Instagram at @encourageman, the letter N, Courage Man. Some of my books, some of my motivating videos. It's not as deep as these people, but it might do until you can get to them. Okay, it's the words of encouragement to help you until you can get to them. You can follow me on Facebook, Dwayne Shigg, or Facebook, Your Encouragement, where many of you are watching now, or you can go to YouTube and see some of our other shows, Talk About It with Dwayne Shigg or Encouragement with Dwayne Shigg. Thank you so much. Guests, hold on for a moment. To our viewers, I thank you so much. I thank you so much. I thank you so much. Stay encouraged. Be blessed. And as the title of my book says, I know times are tough, but guess what? You are too. Stay encouraged. Be blessed. Thank you for watching. Stay encouraged. Hold on, guests.